Tuesday, June 20th, 1972. Albert's father had gone off to live with the cannibals, and given the alternative, he was pretty sure that he would rather be with his father this summer. Mama? Yes, Sugar Bear? You sure Daddy's gonna be all right? Yes, Sugar Bear, he's with an entire crew from the National Geographic. He explained all that before he left. Changing the subject, Albert pressed on. Do I really have to stay with grandmother all summer? Why can't I go to Jacksonville with you? He fidgeted like many kids. It was one of the things he did when he was frustrated. There'll be nothing to do here in Trembling this summer, especially being stuck with her. I'm sure you'll figure something out. Besides, it isn't just grandmother. Papa Jack will be there too, and you have a big imagination. I'm certain you'll figure something out. She thought for a moment and added, but don't let it get you into trouble. She eyeballed him through the rearview mirror. You know you'll have to be on your best behavior when grandmother's about. She has her ways. Ain't that the truth? Albert was quick to add. Flip, flip. He had one of his Spider-Man toys posed in the back seat of his mother's car, fighting an unseen foe. Yes, ma'ams and no, ma'ams, please and thank you, just like we taught you, and never, ever interrupt her while she is speaking. Are we clear on that, Albert John Osteen? Ever. Yes, ma'am, he said, and winked at his mother. Abby laughed. And please try to spare grandmother from the wall crawler's antics. Remember, it's best behavior. That Peter Parker's always getting himself into trouble. Albert did not respond to the latest grandmother commandment. Instead, he tried something altogether different. Mama, why is she so mean? She's not mean, Albert. Mother is just strict and has a lot of rules. You and Daddy have a lot of rules, and you ain't mean. Aren't. What? We aren't mean. That's what I said. Albert went back to playing with his action figure. Follow her rules and everything will be just fine, Abby said. She needed to be sure. There was a whole lot of nothing on his way to his grandparents' house. Getting from one place to another always took time on the old country roads. Not that Trembling was a sprawling metropolis. It was barely a dry spot on the edge of the old Okefenokee swamp. But it did have its ways, and it did have its secrets. The Osteens lived in the little neighborhood just to the north of the city center, while his grandparents, the McGraths, lived far off to the south and to the west. So once they made it through the town proper, the trip to his grandparents always seemed to take forever. Albert started daydreaming as he watched the trees whiz by. The live oaks, the magnolias, and the other stately trees that lined the aging downtown streets were no longer along the road. The typical southern desert of pines and palmettos had replaced them. Even at the slow pace of his mother's driving, if he stared too long at the trees, he could get lost in their hypnotic spell. Soon the oaks began to reappear and crowd the road. Here and there, black water from the swamp made an appearance. Albert knew when he started to see farmland, he was getting close. This is my favorite part of the drive, Mama. Why's that, Sunshine? Well, I like how the trees form kind of a tunnel over the side of the road. But over here on my side, there's nothing but woods and swamp. Would you slow down a little more, please? I don't think I'm in any kind of hurry to get there. The sun could be shining brightly, but on that stretch of the road, it was always cooler and darker. And only a few streamers of light fought through to reach the earth. Papa Jack had explained that the farmland had once been part of the great swamp itself, but the original families that lived here filled it in and cleared it to plant rice. And after some years, the farmers had filled in even more of the lowlands to grow corn, tobacco, and cotton. Now, many of those fields were left abandoned. The swamp crept right up to the road in places, revealing what Florida might have been like before man tried to tame it. Albert took out one of his father's old cameras and peered into the wild places through the viewfinder. How much film did you say I have for the summer? I bought you 10 rolls, his mother said, and paused. So if you have 10 rolls of Tri-X and 5 of Kodachrome, and all of them have 36 exposures, how many pictures can you take each week? Well, Albert started, there are 12 weeks in summer, and I'll be spending only 11 with Papa Jack and Grandmother. And I have 10 rolls of film, so his eyes rolled upward as he continued to work out the problem in the air. It was complicated, and his mind drifted to that Tootsie Pop commercial with the owl. The one that had an answer for everything. 3, he said. 3? His mother asked, puzzled. As many as I'd like until all the film is gone, he winked at his mother. She smiled. If you'd like, you can wait till your father gets home to develop them together. Or if you can't wait, you can use your own money and send them off to Jacksonville to get developed. Albert was still looking through his viewfinder as he thought about how to ration his film when he spied something. Mama, has that old house always been over there? I don't ever remember seeing it. But Albert's mother was lost in her own thoughts and did not answer. Albert snapped a picture and put away the Leica. Gotta ration my film, he said to Spider-Man, and he played in silence until they reached their destination. Albert could see Papa Jack sitting on the porch even before the old wagon approached the drive. The McGrath house was not as grand as Grandmother made it out to be. It was a white clapboard structure, and it almost didn't look like a two-story. It had a mansard roof and a small tower at one end that was part of the house proper. Albert had never seen the inside of that room. The tower was Grandmother's private room and off limits to everyone, even Papa Jack. Albert had often likened that to her secret lair. The house had been built in an old pecan grove, the last vestige of what had once been, by Grandmother's reckoning, one of the largest plantations in all of the South. This house was not part of the original family home, but like most Southern homes of a similar age, it had a front porch complete with rocking chairs. The carriage house from the old Wentworth plantation still stood in the yard. Somehow it had survived the fire that destroyed the rest of the place. The carriage house was now Papa Jack's escape. He had converted into a garage and an office some years ago. It was where he went when he needed to have some time to himself. Abby pulled her car into the dirt drive and parked beneath the pecan tree's most dominant tree, the one that was nestled right up to the house and Grandmother's tower. Albert reached for the car door, but Abby stopped him. Wah! It wasn't quite a question, the noise that escaped Albert's mouth. Sit tight for a minute, Sugar Bear. One last time, and I know you're clear about the rules for dealing with Grandmother. She can be hard, but she really does mean well. I know. Try to keep yourself busy, outside. Maybe you could make some new friends. I talked to Daddy, and he said he'd be happy to take you to the park or the library, or maybe you could think about what you might want to do at school for the talent show this year. Mom, Abby laughed. All right, just do something to keep out of her way. You know, you could always hang out with Papa Jack. He's retired now and probably doesn't have enough to keep himself busy either. She leaned over and kissed him on the cheek, and with that, she released the door handle, and Albert took off like a shot. Papa Jack! Albert could not contain his joy, and he ran for his grandfather. He gave the old man a great hug at the waist. Papa Jack was a tallish, thin man with just enough wispy hair that he could still run a comb through it if the wind wasn't blowing. Albert thought he looked a lot like the old farmer with the pitchfork in that famous painting. Hiya, kiddo! What's new? Abby stayed in the car a minute longer and watched her father and her son, then found herself staring at the ancient pecan tree under which she had parked. She took a moment to say a prayer for a good summer and strength, especially for her son. And her prayer seemed to be acknowledged by a forceful and unearthly gust of wind. Old pecan husks and leaves and twigs rained down upon her car, and among the debris was something strange. She got out of her car for a closer look and found something that reminded her of one of the angel ornaments her Aunt Savannah made every Christmas out of pine cones and acorns, except this thing was something else, more primitive, and it had a certain air of sophistication and detail. She went to it and pulled it from the debris littering the hood of her wagon. And upon closer inspection, she thought it might have been an angel once, but this winged creature filled her with dread. But it had ever been a child's plaything, a toy. She put the figure in her purse with her keys out of habit and then looked around, searching for any signs of what might suggest its origin. And something compelled her to look up. And there, strung up in the branches with the Spanish moss and Virginia creeper, were dozens more. Thank you.